Sasha Banks and Naomi's return to WWE. More details emerge on Brock Lesnar's return after reportedly walking out of Smackdown. Backstage reaction to Brock Lesnar walking out of WWE following Vince McMahon's retirement. Exclusive, Montez Ford to dethrone Roman Reigns. WWE's creative team not changing following Vince McMahon's retirement. Exclusive. Let's jump right into our first story. More details emerge on Brock Lesnar's return after reportedly walking out of Smackdown. In the aftermath of Vince McMahon's retirement announcement on social media, Brock Lesnar reportedly walked out before this week's Smackdown. Hours before the show, Brian Alvarez on Twitter noted that Lesnar decided to follow in McMahon's footsteps. He was also reported to have walked out and made statements that left his WWE future in question. Another report suggested that WWE was even considering replacing the Beast Incarnate for the upcoming SummerSlam Premium Live event. According to a report from Fightful Select, the Lesnar situation was being described as overblown and the former WWE champion eventually decided to return. The Beast Incarnate did appear in the final segment of the show and laid out theory. Given how things ended on this week's SmackDown, it seems likely that Lesnar will indeed challenge for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship as planned. Brock Lesnar made his presence known on SmackDown. This was his first appearance since June 17th when he interrupted the Bloodline after the Head of the Table's win over Riddle. On Sportskeeda Wrestling's latest edition of Smack Talk, Dutch Mantel gave his take on Lesnar's return. The former WWE personality claimed that he wasn't expecting the Beast Incarnate to show up. He admitted that him going after Theory felt like the best part of this week's show. The ending was good because you had Brock come back in. I wasn't expecting him to come in. They kind of laid that out good. He's going after Theory. That was probably the best part of the show. But it's nothing different than what we've seen for the last year. It's the same stuff with the same people, over and over, Mantel said. Lesnar will cross paths with Roman Reigns in a last man standing match at SummerSlam. This could very well be the pair's final match on WWE programming. Backstage reaction to Brock Lesnar walking out of WWE following Vince McMahon's retirement. Exclusive. Prior to this week's episode of SmackDown, it was reported that Brock Lesnar seemingly walked out of WWE following Vince McMahon's shocking retirement. A new report has now disclosed the backstage reaction within the company following Lesnar's walkout. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer noted that there was a sense of huge panic following the incident. Meltzer also highlighted that people shouldn't expect any significant changes within the company, as WWE hopes to show that everything is relatively stable after McMahon's departure. Not to expect any major changes because right now they want to show Wall Street and stockholders that everything is stable and everything is fine. They don't want big changes. According to former WWE personality Dutch Mantel, Brock Lesnar might have earned himself a massive payday by appearing on the latest edition of SmackDown. Speaking on the latest edition of Sportskeeda Wrestling's Smack Talk, Mantel explained his reasoning behind Lesnar's return. He said, he was quoted as saying, "If Vince ain't here, I ain't here," and walked out. I don't know how long he stayed down, but I was thinking at that time, I made a joke. I think Brock may have made himself $1 million, said Dutch Mantel. And he said, hey, if you can pay one of those women millions of dollars, hey, I'll come back for $1 million. I don't know what he made, but he got something out of it because right at the end of the show, he was back. Appearing on the closing segment of this week's SmackDown, Lesnar set his sights on Theory. The Beast Incarnate annihilated the Money in the Bank briefcase holder to end the show. Lesnar will now set his sights on the upcoming SummerSlam Premium Live event, where he will challenge Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. WWE's creative team not changing following Vince McMahon's retirement. Exclusive. Former WWE manager Dutch Mantel discussed how WWE's creative team might change following Vince McMahon's retirement. On the most recent episode of Friday Night SmackDown, Stephanie McMahon kicked off the show shortly after Vince McMahon announced his shocking retirement. Speaking on the latest edition of Sportskeeda Wrestling's Smack Talk, Mantel spoke about the possibilities of WWE coming up with a new creative team. He also noted how people can now communicate better with Triple H, the wrestling veteran, even criticized the writers of the company, and mentioned that they have no prior wrestling experience. We know some names, but seeing the whole dynamic of creative would change now because they don't have the big boy on the block, Vince, breathing down their necks. They may have Triple H and people can probably talk to him better. He's not blowing up at him. They may have some decent ideas, but don't get too over-enthusiastic here because they are people on that writing team who have never done wrestling before. I mean, how can you write something that you've never been interested in? It just doesn't make sense to me, said Mantel. During the same podcast, Mantel discussed whether Mr. McMahon was pressurized to retire or not. The former WWE manager added that Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan might be the reason behind Vince McMahon's retirement, as they are the co-CEOs of the company. Mantel said, so the question is, was he strongly urged to step aside, or did he resign out of his own volition? I think he was strongly urged to step out of the way. I think Stephanie had something to do with that. Probably Nick Khan, and as we know, Nick Khan and Stephanie have both filled the spot that Vince had. So, I don't know how that's going to work. What do you think of McMahon's retirement, and will WWE manage to create interesting storylines in the future? Sounds off in the comments section below. Montez Ford to dethrone Roman Reigns. Current Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair spoke highly of her husband Montez Ford and claimed that he was next in line to hold the gold in WWE. The EST of WWE was in conversation with Pete Rosenberg, Ebro, and Laura Stiles on Hot 97 Radio ahead of this week's Monday Night Raw at Madison Square Garden. She spoke about her career in WWE and the upcoming match against Becky at SummerSlam. During the conversation, Belair handed props to her husband for putting in the hours at the gym. The 33-year-old mentioned that Ford has a lot of potential and is well on his way to becoming the next big star in WWE. There's a lot of talk right now about Montez Ford. He's the next heavyweight world champion. He's been in the gym. He's been changing his physique. You have The Rock who's backing him and saying like he has all this potential, Bianca said. I'm excited for the future for him. He has so much potential. He's really focused on this tag team thing right now with Dawkins. The Street Profits are doing amazing things. All I can say is it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when for my husband. I'm putting it out there. The historic tag team championship reign of the Usos will be under serious threat when they square off against the Street Profits at SummerSlam. The unified tag team champs have been a dominant force in WWE, smashing any team that stood across the ring from them. At Money in the Bank, Jimmy and Jay defeated the Profits, but camera replays showed that Montez Ford's shoulder was above the mat during the pin. This time, however, Ford and Dawkins will also have WWE Hall of Famer Jeff Jarrett as the special guest referee, calling the match right down the middle. Do you think the Street Profits will win their third tag titles at SummerSlam? Sound off in the comments below. Sasha Banks and Naomi's return to WWE. Sasha Banks and Naomi could be on their way back to WWE after a recent change in the company's hierarchy. In a surprising turn of events yesterday, Vince McMahon announced his retirement from WWE, with Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon being co-CEOs of the promotion. The company also announced yesterday that Triple H will be resuming his old duties as EVP of Talent Relation. Wade Keller of PW Torch recently reported that the new hierarchy is respected by the stars, and there is optimism among the women that Stephanie will improve their TV time and presentation. It was also reported that some stars believe Sasha Banks and Naomi returning to the promotion is now an option. It has been over 2 months since the Boss and the glowing star infamously walked out of the arena prior to Raw. The duo reportedly had problems with the creative team's plans for them and decided to voice their opinion by walking out. Speaking about the incident on the Hall of Fame podcast, Booker T stated that he feels the former women's tag team champions prioritized friendship over business. I ain't thinking about friendships. I ain't thinking about buddies. I ain't thinking about walking out with nobody on the roster. Okay, it's just that simple. Looking at this for me, like I've looked at it for 31 plus years. It's a job, man. Booker added, you better look out for yourself. I can name my friends on 2 hands from this business, and most of them aren't wrestlers. It's gonna be the camera guy, referee, you know what I mean. A couple of the wrestlers, but very few and far between that I had good friends. While there is still no confirmation on the duo's WWE status, Sasha Banks has been taking non-WWE bookings. Naomi, meanwhile, has hinted several times that she is no longer a part of the Stanford-based promotion. Would you like to see the Boss and Glow connection back in WWE? Sound off in the comments and let us know.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm